Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
And a good morning to you on the 15th of July. I raced a very black cloud into the building and seems to have headed off someplace else. It be a Tuesday, and that means it's a Sue's Day as well. And Susan, my sister, joins us from St. Louis. Hi, Suze.
Good morning.
Oh, God, you do sound hungover.
I'm a little rough. That's okay.
Okay, well, you had a good time.
Coffee.
Okay, you had a good time. Yeah, that's all that matters, I guess. Yes. And here, let me tell you what Jess is baking tonight. This ought to help you. Jess just told me she's baking an apple bacon pie. We've lost my sister. No, really? Yum?
Well, lots of people use bacon fat in their baking. It's sort of like their secret ingredient. So it's not a stretch to just throw the
She's going to put the bacon.
Well.
She's going to do the bacon as the lattice work on top of the crust.
Yum.
Or in lieu of crust. That's instead of a crust, you have a crust of bacon.
Well, bacon does really well candied. I mean, that's sort of a classic hors d'oeuvre to bake it with brown sugar and let it caramelize. So that makes sense. And, you know, apples taste good with anything. You should add a little bit cheddar cheese.
I've had a Vermont cheddar.
All right, don't make it anyway. She said she's going to have a heart attack tonight. She's going to eat too much of this, and she's going to meet her demise.
Well, in Wisconsin, you know, they put cheddar cheese on apple pie.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they do. You mean that's only in Wisconsin they do that?
Vermont, they do it.
Oh, Vermont.
No,
but
I
see,
think
those
they
are
do
both,
a lot of places.
Well, those
so,
are both
you know,
cheddar
then you
cheese
got
states.
yourself an an ALT or something.
Are you going to put some vanilla ice cream on top of the bacon and the...
No ice cream.
No a la mode?
That's too
All right, well, jeez. So, as bad as you feel today, Susan, it'll be interesting to see how Jess feels tomorrow.
Right.
Right.
Sounds good, Jess.
Thank you.
She'll save you a piece. So, I got to tell you, I was doing something I don't normally do. I happened to look at my cell phone, because we don't look at our watches anymore, because we don't wear them. Do you ever wear a watch?
No.
And if you do,
but
it's
I
for
might
jewelry.
go back to wearing. I miss it.
Really?
I miss it just as an
Yeah.
accessory.
Yeah, it's almost like a bracelet, right? But
Right.
right, but oh, that made me just think of something I read yesterday. I'm sorry. I keep bumping into this guy who lost his arm. He's a journalist who his arm was amputated after a freak accident in Asia. And he's now writing a lot about this experience and what it's like to be one-armed. And I was initially very interested because at the time I was one-armed pretty much too. But he talks about the phantom pain thing, but not only phantom pain, but he just feels that arm is there all the time, not necessarily because it's painful. He says, I can feel the watch on it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just sensory memory.
Well, I think, yeah, your brain is still unbelievable. Unbelievable. And he's the one, I told this story, I think, a few weeks ago. He's the one who he said his denial about what was going on with his body is 2 months after the amputation. He was running near his house, and he went down. He tripped on a slightly, just sort of where the sidewalk wasn't quite even.
Right, where you always trip. On just a little
nothing,
edge.
Yeah, a little nothing, but something he knew was there, had always navigated, no problem. And as he was going down, he said he put his hand out to break his fall, and the arm he put out was the arm he didn't have.
Right.
So he broke his nose as it went just head into the sidewalk. We got a call. Hi, caller.
Hello, Clarence from Canonsburg.
Clarence from Canonsburg.
Sorry, when you talked about phantom limb syndrome,
yeah,
the nerd geek in me just got all excited. Ooh, phantom limb.
So, what do you think?
What is it? A neuroscientist named V.S. and I can never say his last name, Ramasandra or something like that.
Okay.
I watched a couple of different videos when he's talking about that.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Are you were you looking at this stuff where they use a mirror to make...
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's the one who came up with it.
Okay, well, this guy is using that, and he says it helps, but it's where you're tricking the brain by using a mirror to watch your good arm, right?
You move your good arm.
You move your good arm, but because
you
the
mirror... You look in the mirror.
Because a mirror is a your brain thinks it's your left arm. I mean, the one you're losing, you've lost, and somehow that can
normally what it is for pain relief.
Right,
because
that's what he uses it for.
You want to move that arm, but you can't. You know what I mean? In your brain.
Right.
So you trick your brain into thinking that you're moving that arm.
I see. God.
I'm serious. This is I'm getting goosebumps because V.S. Ramasandra, I think is how you say his name, just cleared up so much stuff about people and the way the body works for me in his videos on YouTube and whatever, that I became a whole new way of thinking about things.
You are such a... What's the word?
You know what? The word when you use that word polymath the one time to describe me...
polymath? I
didn't know what it meant, but now I hear it all the time.
Now you are. A polymath or an autodidact? Is that
come on. Right. Too many syllables.
What's an autodidact as opposed to a polymath?
An autodidact is someone that is self-taught.
Okay, well, that's Clarence.
I'm definitely
self-taught. But a polymath is somebody who just knows a lot about...
little about a lot of things.
A little about a lot of things.
Yeah.
Which can make you really annoying.
Yeah, I think I am annoying.
No, or really interesting. I really meant to say it. Or really interesting. I was being obnoxious.
Well, I was going to say, I don't think I'm annoying. I think some people find me annoying because I have an answer for everything.
Well, because because you're excited about knowledge, and you're always, excitedly telling people about stuff. And some people, I think, are not as curious as you and feel like...
some people are really comfortable in their ignorance.
Right, so they don't want this barrage of information unsettling whatever it is they've decided is how things are ordered.
Yeah, I just had a debate on Facebook about the Supreme Court decision, Hobby Lobby decision, and how it was not based on science, but based on
faith.
What Hobby Lobby believed was true.
Right.
And I was trying to tell the guy, it wasn't based on what is true, and he was insisting that it was an abortion pill. So it's not an abortion pill.
Yeah.
But I don't want to get into that, but it was one of those things where I couldn't convince him that he was wrong about the base
about the contraception. Right.
Yeah.
Right. It is, well, we've talked about that a lot, that faith, you cannot argue with people who simply will not take in a fact, and how even bright people with facts in tow, and we talked about this just yesterday, didn't we? Yeah,
exactly. How belief, or feeling, I don't want to say belief, I want to say emotion trumps logic.
Your psychological need to believe something will trump your intellectual ability to understand
And I think V.S. talked about that in one of his things, about how, what is it called, when you hold two different ideas, two conflicting ideas in your head at the same time.
Yeah.
I forget what it's called, though.
What is that called? All right, come on. Hey, you know what? I was in the CVS the other day getting, because I spend a lot of time now in places where you get drugs. And a guy motioned me ahead of him in line. And I said, well, and I looked, and I did have less than he to check out. So I said, well, thank you. And he said, you might remember me. And, of course, I didn't, because I don't remember anybody. And he said, I'm Word Man. Do you remember back in the radio days, a caller named Word Man?
Yeah, I enjoyed this call.
Yeah, I did too. And he would have been able, and I said, Word Man, you can still call. I'm on the internet. And he said, well, I'm not. So much for that.
I can't imagine. My whole self-education thing
is internet.
Wouldn't be where it is,
right?
If it wasn't for the internet.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
God. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Usual.
V.S. Ramasandra.
Okay, and you might want to look up this stuff that this journalist who's lost his arm is writing.
I read his first article.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, I read the first one. I didn't know he was continuing to do it. It was only because it popped up on Facebook or something I might be interested in.
Okay. God. Well.
Who's he write for? The Atlantic?
I think he's a freelancey kind of guy. Okay? But I really don't know. Toodaloo. Bye. Toodle-oo. I was a little annoyed in his article, Susan. Tell me if I should have been or not. When he talked about the fact that the arm, he feels the arm in all kinds of weird times and places. It'll tingle here, it'll do that there. And it's just a constant. And he said, even when I'm having sex. And I thought, I think he put that in there.
Just so that we knew he did?
Yeah. He's a nice specimen of a man, I guess, and certainly sexually, potentially active, but maybe because he feels, sometimes if you lose a big hunk of you might feel like people think you're not
diminished.
Yes. And you're not, and like you're not getting any. And I thought, a woman writing that would never have, I think, said something about sex. Would she? Well, maybe in this day and age.
It depends on the woman.
You're correct. You are absolutely correct. I desist from whatever that was I was saying. Here is, before I even get to what I was going to get to, what was I getting to? So I happened to look at the NBC Nightly News last night. And I tuned in about 6:31, so that would have been, it was either just, I missed the opening, but I think I hit it as it was the lead story. And I was so stunned at what the lead story was on the network news. And I thought, there it is, everything I've been saying about the fact that the network news now is every bit as bad as local news. Do you know what they led with last night?
No, because because I was doing what you were doing at 5:30.
Oh. And you didn't see the NBC News?
Yeah, so what was the lead story?
Oh, I see. I'm sorry. I didn't understand what you were saying. Okay. I don't know how they led into it. All I know is when I turned on the TV, there was Al Roker, weather guy, in front of a map. And it showed that there was a system it was radar, and that there was a lot of rain heading into where Roker is and where the nightly news is, the East Coast, which...
Oh, it's the summer, quote, polar vortex, unquote.
It's BS!
It's cool out. It's delightfully cool out.
Right. This was the story, first of all, that after this rain, and we could see as much as 1 or 2 inches in spots. And I'm thinking, what the hell is this doing on the nightly news? The network news, which is supposed to cover the world. This doesn't even, I would have said if the local news led with the weather, when there was nothing, like earth-shattering. It's that, and I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget. Essentially, there was this breathless piece. And, you have to be breathless when you're doing this, as if something extraordinary is happening. Records could be broken of colder temperatures. And so, essentially, they led with this absolutely zero story on the fact that it was colder than usual.
Yep.
That's
it.
I got to tell you.
I mean, and I must say, it's very nice to be in St. Louis in July and sleeping with the windows open.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to. It's supposed to be 72
tomorrow.
I'm
going to spend the day outside weeding.
Yeah.
Because we had a nice little rain that came through.
The jet stream moved a little or something. Something went, and this is news. I'm sorry. I'm really sort of stunned and I have lost all respect for Brian Williams, for what's her name who does the other one, if she still does it, for all these people who do. These guys used to be journalists.
High-class news people.
How they sold their souls. They sold there for a lot of money. I have to admit, a lot of money. A lot of money. But,
to think that they have editorial control is obviously bull.
Well, right. There are people now who know. First of all, they know their audience. Their audience is getting stupider.
Their audience doesn't want to hear anything about whole sections of the world anymore.
Because it upsets them. Yeah, it upsets them. So they don't want to hear. So they wanted, and you know what? I walked out of the room in disgust, did not turn it off, came back at about 10:02, so 20 minutes into the newscast. You know what the story was then? He had video of a hailstorm on a beach in Siberia.
God, and that's just straight off the internet. That was like a trending video.
What is that? And that was followed by, the fact that the moon is bigger than usual. God!
Which is an old story.
I know. That was 2 days ago. Oh, dear God in heaven. And I got to tell you, what this means is first of all, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. They are going to destroy themselves. There will be no audience for their shows. None. They'll get softer and softer until you cannot call it news. It's just a little tweeny bit more informative than Entertainment Tonight. And it does a lot of Entertainment Tonight stories now, too.
Yeah.
And then, right after they did the hailstorm in Siberia and the big moon and the fact that it's colder than usual, the next story, it didn't segue at all. From big moon, he went to, and Dick Cheney says, President Obama is devastating the military, and that the military should be our highest priority. Higher than food stamps, higher than highways, higher than blah, 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 blah. And I'm thinking, who put this show together? All right. There, that's my rant. I am stunned.
Well, so talking to our mother was more informative, I guess.
Yeah. We actually talked about the news. So, one other thing about news, and I got this from The Week magazine. Pundit Fact, which is one of those, groups that tries, I guess, to sift through all the crapola on the television and on the internet. did an analysis of comments made by Fox News hosts and personalities. And guess what percentage they found were untrue?
Oh, well, I knew that was going to be the...
Right.
Well, it can't be like 84 or something like that.
It's close. It's 60%, 60% of comments made by Fox News hosts and personalities are mostly or outright false. Now, lest we get all, whoop-de-dooey, they also looked at MSNBC. And looking at MSNBC's hosts and personalities, they found that 46% of what they were saying outright false or mostly false, which is why I don't watch either anymore.
No, why do you want to be preached at from either side?
And then
then where do you go?
Well,
because if what they're talking about is weather on the national news, I guess you could go to PBS, I guess.
PBS, you go to the internet, I guess. You go to your newspaper, you go to you could go to PBS, who's still actually seriously trying to cover news.
Right.
Because CNN, which at least is, which is sort of the more neutral body in between the liberalism of MSNBC and the conservatism, the propaganda of both of those, because they do not pretend to balance their what they're saying. CNN is a bunch of crap too. I did turn to them the other day to find out. I
discovered that just covering the news was a losing proposition.
So now, I tuned into them the other day to try to get, some international news, I thought. And they were obsessed with the kid who died in the hot car.
Right. At least they've stopped looking for the airplane, right?
I believe they have stopped. Every once in a while, they bring the airplane search back up again. But, oh, God, we are so ill-served by these, what for many people are their major sources of news. It just freaks me out.
Well, we have established a country in which it is not only acceptable, but it is preferable to be willfully ignorant.
Yeah. And to be absolutely certain
in your ignorance. And the courts will rule that you have an absolute right to it.
Oh, dear God in heaven. Okay. Hey, here's some news for you. Maybe if you want news, listen to me, okay? Granted, it's an eclectic kind of collection, but Did you know, Susan? Did you ever read Archie comic books?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the only one I ever read because I've sort of related to them. So, did you like Veronica more or Betty? Do you remember?
Honestly,
Betty was the all-American blonde, and Veronica was the
feeling one way or the other about either of them. I liked the guys more.
Yeah, well, which guys did you like? Jughead?
Well, I didn't like. I didn't want to be dating any of them. Why? Who was your favorite?
None of them. You're right. None of them.
None of them. I didn't read them that way.
Yeah, okay.
I was only sort of vaguely interested, but they were, fun.
Well, it's still coming out, believe it or not. And there is an installment coming out tomorrow, July 16th.
Is this the afterlife with Archie?
In which Archie is going to be killed.
But
That's right. I think I read about that.
What are you saying over there, Jess?
There's a new series, Afterlife with Archie. It's zombie themed.
There's a new series, Afterlife with Archie, which is where he's a zombie?
Well, zombies kind of...
Oh, my God.
But I think that's how he's
well, they're just going to flat out kill him.
His gay best friend.
I'm looking at the frame of he's rushing toward a guy, and there's a gun pointed at him, and he takes a bullet. And he takes a bullet to save his friend, who is the only openly gay character in Archie comics. A guy named Kevin Keller.
He dies a hero.
He dies a hero taking a bullet for his gay friend. And listen, so this becomes known. And oh my God, the internet. That's what I wanted to get.
The outcry.
Yeah, here's somebody who says, "Oh right, Archie must be killed to make way for a homosexual. Yeah, no agenda there." Then, from another, homo propaganda and gun control propaganda. Here's my favorite. "My name is Arch, and I'm very much alive. As a retired U.S. Air Force officer, Vietnam vet, and NRA member, Archie would never have taken a bullet to save anyone. He would have pulled out his licensed gun and blown this creep's head off. Trust me. And then after the police had arrived, he would have taken both Betty and Veronica up to his apartment."
Oh, barf.
But so here's what's interesting. So the guy's immediately charging that this is about a gay agenda and all that stuff. Listen to Archie's publisher and co-CEO. He says Archie's passing is not just a publicity stunt, but also a lesson about gun violence and a declaration of diversity. So it is. I mean, if you're on...
So it's exactly, of course, it's exactly what these people were saying.
Oh, yeah, right, there's no agenda. No, the guy who is in charge of the Archie comics says, Archie is not a superhero like all the rest of the comic book characters. He's human. He's a person. And when you wound him, he bleeds. He knows that. If anything, I think his death is more impactful because of that. We hope by showing how something so violent can happen to Archie that we can, in some way, learn from him.
Well, then they shouldn't bring him back in any way, because
I don't think
what
they
should
should
learn
either.
is that, and what death means is
it's final.
You're gone.
That's right. It's over. You don't
It's
have
over.
Archie
You
anymore.
aren't back as a zombie. You aren't back as this. You don't have. You're gone.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the consequence.
That's right, of gun violence and hatred. Okay.
You're erased.
Yeah, you're finished. You're erased. You don't exist. So Susan, at one point in this story where I'm reading about this, they give the last names of all these characters. Do you have any idea what Archie's last name is? Do you?
I know. I used to know. It's not. It's not Johnson, right?
No.
No.
Okay. Do you want to know? I'll tell you. Ain't none of them Jewish, I'll tell you that. Archie Andrews.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, that's right? That rang a bell?
Yeah.
Doesn't ring a bell with me. How about Veronica's last name? And you might be able to
It
get
ain't
that.
Lake.
No, but her father, her white mustached rich father, was known by that. Can you think of what his name was? Then you'll know her last name. Veronica. How we doing out there in cyberspace? You getting these? Veronica Lodge. No?
Right.
Betty Cooper? Jughead Jones? And Reggie Mantle. Okay, that's enough. That's maybe even more than enough. So who would have thought when Archie started 75 years ago that he would meet his end throwing his body in front of a gay friend?
That he who never seemed to age would end up being murdered.
God. Okay, so there it is for what it's worth. I got to take a break. Okay? We'll be okay. We'll be back momentarily, and I think heading into I got 2 really good articles here to take up. Stay tuned. I'm serious. They're good.
More is on the way with Lynn Cullen Live.
Pittsburgh City Paper's annual City Guide magazine is available now. Pick up one for a special look at the unique neighborhoods of Pittsburgh, plus the most complete guides of restaurants, bars, nightlife, festivals, exhibits, entertainment, and culture in the burg. Pittsburgh City Paper available at over 1,700 locations throughout western Pennsylvania and on the web at pghcitypaper.com, on your smartphone at citypapermobile.com.
Packers.
Vikings.
We come from different places.
Uptown.
Downtown.
We come to different conclusions.
Half empty.
Half full.
But when we live united, we make a real difference in the building blocks of life. Children succeed in school, families gain financial stability, the health of our neighbors improves, and suddenly so do our communities. Real change won't happen without you.
Live United.
So give, advocate, volunteer, Live United. Sign up today at liveunited.org. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
Have a question or an opinion? Call Lynn Cullen at 412-316-3381 or email lynn at pghcitypaper.com. Now, more with Lynn Cullen Live.
Okay, this is from the science section of the New York Times today. And we've talked about this subject before, but I can't believe how reluctant so many people, even people I know, are to take it in and understand it. And it has to do with the dangers of taking antibiotics. It drives me nuts. Anytime a doctor tells me, you know, well, I'll give you a Z-Pack or you get on it, I say, I don't want it, I don't want it, I don't want it. Although sometimes that is what you need. But no,
only some of the time. The rest of the time, it's better to suffer through.
Listen, see, here's the way it works, guys. And this is another fascinating thing. You think that we are, you know, the be-all and end-all. But in fact, if you look at life in a slightly different way and in a different perspective, all we human beings are is the universe that trillions and trillions and trillions of other life forms live in. We're sort of the petri dish for, they say here, each one of us has probably about 100 trillion living bacterium in our guts. 100 trillion.
Yep.
Can't even imagine. They outnumber, those cells in our body outnumber the human cells in our body 10 to 1. So we could argue.
Well, there was also, as long as you like to do these stories about gut, there was an interesting story in the science section today about the placenta and how little is known about it.
That is correct.
But
I read that too.
It is its own sort of almost like a cancer that grows on a woman's, attaches itself to
the uterus.
A woman's uterus and then creates itself and acts as the external organs for the growing fetus until it has organs of its own to do these things.
Right.
But they don't know anything about it, and it is populated with its own
biota.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
so
listen to this.
They're discovering that what they need to know is a whole lot more about it because it, in fact, is what's controlling how well that baby does. And how well the mother does.
And listen to this from the article I'm into. babies born from cesarean sections, which have soared in modern times, do not get all of the biota they're supposed to naturally from the mother's birth canal. Instead, they get a lot of biota from the mother's skin, which doesn't really belong there. This difference can reshape that newborn's metabolism, its immune system, and there have been a number of studies now done on C-section babies and vaginal delivery babies, and those born by C-section were, and this is no number to sneeze at, 26% more likely to be overweight and 22% more likely as adults to be obese. They figure this has something to do with the lack of biota they're supposed to be getting through a natural childbirth. But now they're saying that what we're doing by taking antibiotics all the time is we are destroying a lot of these microorganisms, and the human microbiome, what we carry in our guts, in our bodies, is clearly losing its diversity. And guess what? That's not good.
No.
It's injurious to our health.
While we are lessening our body's natural ability to fight and to protect itself, we are also teaching invading dangerous things how to mutate and not respond to what we've got to treat them. So it's truly a double-edged sword.
Well, what they think now, you know how you hear, in everyday conversation, someone will say, how come nobody had, needed gluten-free stuff 20 years ago? How come there weren't, whoever heard of, Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis or non-alcoholics having fatty liver disease? You know what they're saying now? They think that a lot of these disorders that are just exploding in the population are linked to that lack of diversity and how we have distorted our own microbial balance in our own stomachs. And they think that that is probably behind, in many ways, all these GI ailments, like some I mentioned, and celiac disease, celiac disease, and digestive disorders like chronic reflux, and all those autoimmune diseases that are proliferating left and right, MS, rheumatoid arthritis, asthma, allergies. They think all of that. So with you guys who take, every time you sneeze, you go and your idiot doctor gives you antibiotics. Every time you have a little, you go and take antibiotics and your idiot doctor gives them to you. When I can't remember the last time I had antibiotics, but I remember arguing with the doctor, and he said, look, I understand what you're saying, but sometimes they are called for. And in this case, they are called for. But they think that the fact that we now are losing the diversity of these microbiota in our stomachs, that's why so many of us suffer from allergies, from food diseases, even perhaps from diabetes, and that the damaging effects of this lack of diversity start early. And I just don't Why don't we do something about this? It says here that in Sweden, antibiotic use is 40% less than ours at any age. And guess what? They do not have as high a rate of all of these ailments and diseases that we exceptional Americans have.
Well, but, perhaps we should ask ourselves what it is about our medical culture that creates, essentially drug pusher doctors.
Our medical culture is, you'll pardon the expression, fucked. It's fucked by greed and by capitalism and by exactly these corporate drug pushers and the docs that they seduce. It's drives me nuts, Susan. I don't know how you fix it.
It drives me nuts too.
I don't know how you
Every
fix it.
Every time I hear a report on ADHD, I want to scream.
You think that's a bunch of bull too?
Well, I know that it's just a bunch of people running. There are some people that really have it. I'm not going to say that, but
right.
There is not this epidemic that they are talking about that requires the vast part of our nation to be taking speed.
Well, stop and think about it, Susan. We have medicalized being an adolescent. We have medicalized, made into a condition that must be treated, being a boy who squirms and has a short attention span. We have medicalized.
Not only that, but we've given them technology that accentuates,
that exacerbates
those tendencies.
Exactly.
It might
right.
indeed be creating some of this.
Exactly right. I remember Fred Rogers saying how much he hated all of this children's programming that with the quick edits, and he didn't even like Sesame Street because he thought they edited too fast and blah, 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 and that this was just making kids training their brains to not be able to be still. I think he was right.
Oh, he was right. And his program was very still.
Think of how still it was. Just really quiet. But that's all gone. Mr. Rogers lost. And we've all lost. And our children are becoming a different kind of human being. And Susan, your grandchild, will be a different kind of human being because he'll grow up, even with his two wondrous parents. He's going to grow up in a world that's just going to be coming at him every second.
Well, in fact, I'm hardly one to complain. I get to FaceTime with them and see my grandchild
every day,
even though we're hundreds of miles apart, whenever I want.
Right. That's the good part.
That is the good part.
That's the good part. But man, is there a serious downside. Okay, so speaking of technology, I got another thing. And I don't know if you happen to see this. Susan and I, as you might know, are crossword puzzle nuts. And specifically, the New York Times crossword puzzle, which is generally considered the leading crossword puzzle. It says right here in an Atlantic article, arguably the leading crossword in the puzzling world. Okay? Susan, it says here.
Well, we already know.
That it's going to be gone.
It's going to be gone?
Gone! They're going away. And your little app where Susan at least now does hers on her little, what do you call that? iPad.
My iPad.
On your iPad, which I find I don't like doing it on the iPad myself, but I still do it in the paper. But so they have these apps now, but they're saying, forget about it. Forget about it, guys. It's over. And here's why. It is going to be a relic of the past. Crosswords are only 100 years old. The first one was developed here in the United States. And they say that puzzles in Britain are different from puzzles in the U.S., and that puzzles in Britain have a lot more black squares, meaning that actually, they're easier. Puzzles.
Well, I think these puzzles are getting easier.
Well, yes, Susan and I have complained that, like, the Sunday puzzle, which, by the way, I did not think was necessarily easy this Sunday. Did you?
Really? Because I did.
Oh,
I started and went all the way through again.
Well, I didn't. And they do say that
I got the
the
thing so easily.
Yeah, I know. I got the big thing so easily too, but there's a lot of other little things I didn't get. But that's what they say. People love to do crossword puzzles, and also because when you get a hard one, you get bragging rights, right? But they say American puzzles interlock far more often and make them more complex. However, they say this. The only way that crossword puzzles survive are through apps. And when the New York Times rolled out an app, their crossword puzzle users revolted, they said, widely despised the crossword app. They say here, Susan, you might want to check this out. The best crossword app is Crosswords Classic. Okay?
Okay.
And even the New York Times say it is the definitive source for puzzles. So, and the New York
they
Times
have continually improved their app. I mean, you know.
Yeah, but they're not going to. What do you pay for that app? It says here that the Times crossword app costs $40 a year.
No, well, it doesn't cost me that much because I'm a subscriber, so I get a different rate.
Okay, but the Crossword Classic, this app, costs $9.99 forever for a one-time download. So you tell me if the New York Times is going to keep on putting out a crossword puzzle. And they also, and here's the other reason they're going down, Susan. Guess how you describe the people, the demographic that is most into crosswords.
Over 60.
Mm-hmm. Anything else?
Female.
Mm-hmm. That's it. Over 60-year-old females. Here we are.
Really? I'm pretty good at this.
Yeah, that's right. That's what it was. Over 60-year-old females. And they say that while crossword puzzles may be associated with the elderly, the lonely, and or the mad genius types, it can be a very social activity because you reach out to family members and say, hey, what do you think? Like when there's a hip-hop thing, I say, Sam, what? Hip-hop guy, blah, blah, blah. But they say baby boomers may, in fact, be the last crossword puzzle generation. It's over. I can't stand it. I can't stand it. Susan.
Well, you know, what are you going to do? Just keep doing it. Listen, I'm at least buying the apps.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, the audience is white. We're old, we're white, we're female. The average solver, college-educated white woman in her 60s.
And we were raised in a family where vocabulary was
real important.
You know, part of the comedy.
Right, you had to be, right. It was a verbal family. I knew Clarence would start talking about poop therapy. Suze.
Because I knew he was going to talk about poop therapy, too, because you've been sort of on a poop therapy
do you remember
jag for a while.
Do you remember we were watching our niece at that Second City, or were you there?
No.
We went to, I was with our mom, and we went to see my brother's daughter in a Second City review, sort of an improvisational review. Not the big headliners Second City, but they have like others that, do. So they were doing what Second City does. They were doing a lot of improv, and they were very funny. And then at one point, these two guys were on stage, and they said they were just going to start doing a song, but they asked the audience to come up with a idea for what they'd be singing. And I forget exactly what I screamed out. I didn't say poop therapy. I said fecal. What's the
fecal matter?
No. It was like fecal therapy or something. Yeah, it was like, okay. So I said fecal transplants. That's what it was. That was it.
That's what it was.
So I screamed out fecal transplants, and their mouths dropped open. They had never heard. And they said, what? And I said, studies show that if you take somebody else's poop and you stick it in a little capsule and you let somebody else take it, that this can correct stomach issues in the person. It's poop transplants, essentially. Well, they went nuts. And so within a second, and I don't know how they do it, there's one of them strumming a guitar, and they're talking about poop pills and singing about poop pills. But yeah, so Clarence just sent this. In the study, 94% of patients receiving fecal transplants for things like ulcerative colitis and stuff where their stomachs just ain't doing the job, 94% who receive fecal transplants from people whose stomachs work, who have good biota, recovered after 1 or 2 procedures. Those receiving antibiotics fared far worse, only 30% recovering. The fecal transplants work so much better than standard treatment that the trial was abandoned midway, the researchers deeming it unethical to knowingly give some trial participants antibiotics when they could give them the power of poop. So if you know somebody who's got like no digestive issues, that person could make money selling their poop.
Right.
I could use some of their poop. Why aren't our doctors telling us about this stuff? Why, when we go in with our stomach aches and our blah 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 and all the trouble, why aren't they? I don't know.
Well, I think a lot of them are, but in the meantime, they have to deal with, they have to assess what's going on. But I think where they are at the point where where they can do this sort of stuff. That's what this is about.
Well, I think.
By the way, I've downloaded the app.
Okay, that app I told you about.
Yeah.
Okay.
It seems pretty nice.
Oh, good. Boy, you don't let no grass grow under your feet, do you?
No.
Okay. So I've got one other topic to bring up here. Oh, by the way, and I wanna plug the fact that tomorrow I have a guest who I've been talking about a bit because of the book he's written called The Bend of the World. And it's gotten rave reviews from, big reviewers like, is it Andrew Wolcott in Vanity Fair and others. This is his first novel. He's a kid I know. He's a kid I know. I do. I serve on a board with him. And he manages the Benedum. And I guess in his spare time, he wrote this fantastic novel because I've read it now. And it's set here in Pittsburgh, and it definitely has a younger, a 20, 30-something vibe. So if you're an old fart, you might not be able to get into it. Tom Sokolowski liked it. My friend Kit, who I think of as somebody who's smart about literature, she was gobbling it up when I told her to do it. And so Jacob will be on tomorrow, and we'll talk about this amazing book called The Bend of the Earth, in which Pittsburgh figures prominently as an entity in and of itself. This thing goes into the Mayan calendar and the Fourth River, and the fact that Pittsburgh was the center of a major CIA kind of a, what do you call that? Never mind. I can't think. So, tomorrow, coming in at 10. Okay, Susan, back on, and this is a local story, but I just want to give you a sense of this. Do you remember when that crazy person shot up the psychiatric hospital here? Went in, this is one of those, shootings where a guy comes in to the, again, why am I blanking on the name of UPMC's, help! Psychiatric hospital.
Psych.
Thank you, Western Psych.
You just said that.
I did say it?
I thought you did.
I'm losing my mind.
Maybe you didn't. Maybe I'm losing my mind. I thought you said it.
Well, as I said, at least I don't have cancer. According to, okay, so one person was killed, and a number of other people were injured, and 2 of the injured employees of the big hospital here, UPMC, are now suing the hospital for lack of security and other things. But then there's these side issues, and listen to this one. 2 of the people, one was, I think, a receptionist. She was shot in the stomach, and some other guy. Both said they were visited by like a big mucky muck woman, like the first vice president of UPMC, when they were in the hospital, and they were informed. Well, here's the woman's deposition, the woman who was shot in the stomach. All of a sudden, I saw Kim Owens and Liz Concordia being the biggie. Liz Concordia, and they came over to my bed. But there were also all these men they brought with them. They told me who these men were, but I don't remember. But they were just all men dressed in suits, and they lined up around the room, and I was afraid of them. And Liz and Kim were right next to me, and they had their heads down so they could hear me talk. And they were telling me how they would take care of me, and that they were sorry that this happened, and that no matter what, they would take care of me. And then Liz said, Kathy, no matter, I will see to it that you receive your full pay. I'll take care of all your medical. Kathy, we will take care of you. We are so sorry this happened. And they were so nice. They were very nice and consoling, and said more than once that they were going to help me and for me not to worry about anything, that they would take care of it. None of those men that were there spoke. I don't know why they were there. Okay. So,
Creepy.
Listen to this. Then, it turns out the shooter had a rental insurance policy that was worth $500,000, and that was deemed that should be split up among his victims. And so this woman whose deposition I just read gets a letter from UPMC saying that it planned to collect more than $200,000 in medical charges out of that settlement money. So the money she was expected to get from her shooters...
They were repaying themselves because now she didn't need it. They aren't allowed... They're legally not allowed to even... Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so this is unbelievable. So here... They play this deposition of this poor woman to Liz Concordia. And here's what she says in hers. She was asked, did you ever enter her hospital room? No, I did not. And then she absolutely denies ever having been to the room. And then she goes on to say this. This is obviously a very unfortunate incident. And Claudia Roth, who was the president of Western Psych, absolutely went to go visit Miss Light to express our concern for her as an employee. I cannot comment on specifically what they discussed, as I was not there. Now, Suze, there's a guy who says they came to him too and told him that, so he's part of this suit. Now, who do you believe? Who is so?
Well, I tend to believe her.
The patient, the woman shot.
Yeah, and especially if it's corroborated by somebody else.
Yeah, it seems to me, but you think any of those men in suits would be called and asked?
No, and she can't identify any of them.
And she can't identify them. And then the other woman who was with her, this Kim, if she says Liz Concordia is lying, and in fact she did say that, she's out of a job.
Well, that's the problem with these things.
I don't know what it
but,
is.
You know, this is the point. This is the point where at some point, if you are a human being and you have an ethical bone in your body, you go, I don't want a job where I have to stand up and lie in the face of someone who knows that I'm lying.
Susan,
what price do I need this job?
This is such a super rich outfit. They are gazillions. This poor woman who's shot in the stomach ain't super rich. That they are going, and she was shot in the stomach on their property because they did not have good security for her and their other employees. And that they would take 1 red cent from her is beyond belief. It is as though UPMC goes out of its way to be as nasty and mean and I can't even, do they even care what this looks like?
No.
I despise them. I just despise them. Everybody knows I despise them. But it's crap like this. And I want to warn the good people of Aurora, Colorado, that Liz Concordia is heading their way. She has been chosen the new president and CEO of the University of Colorado's health system in Aurora. So at least we're losing. And I have heard, believe me, I've never heard a good word about this woman. And that she could watch this poor soul who was, can you imagine those men coming in? You think this woman would make that up? Because she doesn't know. What are all those men doing just sort of staring at me?
Right.
Oh, my God. Intimidation. Oh, my God. In case you guys missed that little thing, it's about 4 days old. But I just, unbelievable to me. And I'll tell you who we all believe. We believe the poor beleaguered patients, the woman and the guy, who both said they got visited and told not to worry, we will take care of your medical bills. As well, they should. Okay, that's my rant. Suze?
Listen, in some ways, aside from the fact that we're out of time, in some ways, she's better off because if she had accepted all of that stuff and it had been paid for, she would have, not been able to turn around and do what she's doing now, which is to sue them and sue them big.
Well, I hope to hell she gets a big settlement. I hope to hell. Anyway, that's it. May your poop be filled with all the good biota. And that is my wish for you all. Susan?
Yes, and also with you.
I hope you didn't upset any Catholics there. And also, bye. Tomorrow, Jacob Bacharach, and if he's in person, half as funny as he is in the book. This is going to be a lot of fun. Don't miss it. See you tomorrow.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.